Okay, so let's pick up from the last video and further dissect the topic of simple, perennial, and permaculture. One of the first things any diligent homesteader will need to do is to plant trees. Make it a priority. I mean, before you do almost anything on your land, including building a place to live, you should plant that will provide you with loads of food. If the Lord wills, year after year in due seasons. Make it a practice of planting trees every year, and the majority of those trees are chosen for some type of food production. I think setting a goal to plant at least 5 fruit or nut trees a year every year ought to be in every homesteading plan, no matter how much land is available to you. Even if a small acreage were to get too crowded with trees, the oldest trees could then be harvested for the wood. Pecan, cherry, walnut, and apple trees provide great wood for woodworking, for building, and for firewood or wood for the smokehouse. Fruiting bushes and vines should also be planted every year. Planting productive trees is just another down payment on becoming independent of the food and feed stores. When you begin to experience an abundance of these products, feed a portion of your crop to your animals, because fruits and nuts are a great addition to a balanced animal diet. Rotted fruit is great for a compost pile or for your pigs. Fruit and nuts can be dried, powdered, or canned. It's obvious that in this current environment, our diets are greatly lacking in fruits and nuts. In addition to planting trees and plants for our food, we ought to immediately begin learning about and eventually harvesting whatever edibles are already being made available from our land, wild edibles. It is up to us to be diligent to determine what plants and trees that grow on our land actually produce some edible products, such as leaves, shoots, roots, fruits, or nuts. Then we must educate ourselves on how to nurture and encourage these plants so that we can have a sustainable food source for the future. We have been so colonized into thinking that we have to grow annual lettuce plants every year for salads and sandwiches that we didn't consider how many other more natural and perennial plants would serve the same purpose, such as dandelion leaves or sweet potato leaves. I do highly recommend you get a copy of The Perennial Vegetables by Eric Tonsmeyer. It is an awesome introduction into a completely non-traditional but historical and ancient way of looking at how to grow food. Okay, let's talk about permaculture. Permaculture is a combination of the terms permanent and agriculture. Therefore, it ought to immediately have our attention. Permaculture is a philosophy and a design theory that revolves around the idea of interdependent planning, planting, and design. The overall idea is one of simplicity and sustainability. A permaculture plan is one that incorporates all of the sustainable ideas in a way where each area benefits and serves another area. For example, a permaculture idea of raising chickens might be a chicken coop and pen system, like a chicken run, where fruit and nut trees and bushes are planted so that they drop their fruit or nuts into the chicken pens. The plants produce oxygen, food for the animals, and the chicken fertilizer can be used to boost the productivity of the plants. This is mainly just as an idea to get you started on the overall philosophy. Proper, intelligent, sustainable permaculture design on the homestead can greatly reduce the overall workload and can reduce or eliminate many of the costs related to running the homestead. From the day we start our homestead, we ought to be thinking about some type of perennial or continuous food production. It is hard in this world of immediate gratification and a get-it-now mentality to plan for a crop that may not mature for many years from now. But we ought to always remember that this is exactly the way that God works, and our patience will be rewarded in due time. One of my greatest anticipations and now greatest pleasures has been to see the trees that I've planted in our first year on our home front start to produce fruits. Now, only in this great example of God's mighty works in and through us, but it is a profound picture of His providence and grace towards us, that He provides sweet and free fruit from the ground abundantly to all of His children who will reach out and take it. One of the solutions to many food production problems is to really work on and emphasize a year-round growing program. I was personally so colonized into the spring annual garden rut that I never really spent much time until recently thinking about using the whole year to grow food. My point is that by operating on the accepted or common way of doing things today, we will miss out on about half of the available year to grow more food sustainably. Historically, most subsistence farmers, homesteaders, or farmers who grew all or nearly all of their own food fed their animals almost exclusively on pasture and on seasonal root crops. Once upon a time, local dairies bought their milk from small family farms, but eventually the dairies found it easier to operate their own large-scale industrial milk production systems based on feeding the cows cheap bulk grains. Economy of scale pushed out the small, diversified producer and entrenched the large commercial producer. This industrialization process happened in every single category of food production. This process mainstreamed or actually dumbed down our food supply and the taste buds of the modern consumer. We were all trained to like and expect what the markets provided, inferior and unhealthy food products. Hopefully by now, you have picked up on the industrial process and how things degrade under that process. Along with that process, our food has been devalued and diminished. And along the way, we have become weaker and unhealthier. But what is the inevitable result of where we are actually headed? The inevitable destination and result of industrializing the food supply has been and will continue to be socialized and industrialized medicine, brainwashed consumers, and one day soon, societal collapse. To succeed and to survive, you need to learn the history of how every particular modern agrarian practice or process began. We need to think differently today in order to survive an inevitable collapse. Which brings me back to my topic. When you are planning your farm, you need to carefully consider how our agrarian ancestors planned their land and their farms so that they could grow many root crops that were beneficial to both their animals and to themselves, and how intensive gardening of some vegetables and other staples helped to provide 100% production of their own supplies. Okay, so our next talk will be more on the food and the off-grid family. That's it for now. Thumbs up if you want to see more videos like this one. And remember, a simple life is a beautiful life.